Hey, how's it going? How's it going? How are you tonight? I hope you are doing well. So today we're going to be going to the snowy tundra Arctic region called Nye. But this time we'll be making our way to a cozy little bakery seated atop what looked to be an iceberg in the middle of nowhere. Now, of course, this wasn't just any old bakery. This was clearly a strawberry shortcake bakery. Obviously, that just makes perfect sense in this situation. This bakery was run by a young girl in her 20s who went by the name of Mila, and her guardian, a magical Arctic fox called Kuko. You know the deal with stories like this. Family passed, child was left behind, was adopted by somebody, but in this case, she was taken in by a wise fox. Peculiar. So, as you can probably tell, there were two strange things here. One, how did this bakery come to be on top of an iceberg? And two, how did she stay afloat? And I don't mean how she stayed afloat the iceberg. I mean, how did she stay afloat monetarily? Well, luckily for her, her customers consisted of icebreaker ships, well, the crews of icebreaker ships, the local Aboriginal tribes of which she was a descendant of herself, and the most common was magical creatures and magical animals, all which kind of, I guess that's the same thing. And sometimes they were accompanied by non-magical animals. All were welcome at her shop. Now, to answer the first question, if you remember from the last story, then you probably already have an idea of where this is going. But yes, the bakery was actually seated on top of a gate. But it was not just the bakery. No. The whole building was passed down and built up for centuries. To explain it a bit clearer, over time, the building, which now looked like a bakery, was built upwards, with each floor being a different business, and the gate was on the very bottom floor. You see, this gate was used by her family as a power source for the multiple businesses above it, but it was also connected to a network which distributed the power among the creatures and the people who lived in the region. Her family maintained it and kept the power running, but there was one other ability of this gate. One that was kept within her family and that most people alive had forgotten about for hundreds of years. The first of her ancestors protected the gate and set up a network of power that helped the region, but a few hundred years later, members of the family began to get more and more creative and started to build businesses that could utilize said power, whilst also maintaining the power system. At this point, they were still building outwards, like around. The gate itself could never run out of power, but the wires could age and fray, things could erode, vibrations could cause disconnections, so it was always important to check on it. It wasn't until around 800 years ago that one of her great-great-great-great-great-great-great-great-grandfathers, or, give a couple greats, made an extreme discovery. He discovered that this gate was not only the power source, but was also controlling the entire climate. Of course, he found this out by accident one day when he short-circuited the entire region after dropping milk on one of the wires and caused an ice storm in the middle of summer. But after realizing the true power of the gate, he began to tinker. His entire life he spent tinkering, knocking out the power, his father constantly running in and yelling at him due to other families' complaints at his recklessness and irresponsibility. But one day he got it. He was finally able to figure out how to manipulate the gate to set the climate to whatever he wanted. But by this point, he was already quite old, and he had a son of his own. And so together with his son, they created the first supercomputer. And we're going to call it a supercomputer because it was basically the size of the entire first floor to set a manual hold on the climate cycle. One that would keep summer going for all time. But the computer needed constant upkeep as the gate would constantly shift and reset and change its coding. After his passing, his son took over full time and passed this responsibility on to his children, who passed them on to their children, and so on and so forth. And his descendants would go on to maintain this system for the next 400 years. But as it happens, over time, passions change, rebellion, disinterest, and through this neglect, and after a certain point, ignorance, the region slowly fell into a winter cycle, long enough to match the 400-year summer. As the ice formed and the snow fell endlessly, Mila's ancestors began to build upwards, and thus explains why there seemed to be a little bakery at the top of an iceberg. But fast forward to now, and this winter was finally coming to an end. But Mila didn't know that yet. Okay, so we need 7 cups of strawberries cut into quarters, 75 grams of granulated sugar, 1 teaspoon of vanilla extract, and 1 cup of heavy cream. Perfect, 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 perfect. And now to make the biscuits. Okay, so we're gonna need 2 3/4 cups of flour, 1/4 cup of granulated sugar, 4 teaspoons of baking powder, and I can't reach the baking powder. Kuko, can you help? Kuko? Just at that moment, Kuko burst into the door, panicked. This immediately put Mila on edge, as Kuko never panicked. He was calm, wise, laid back at all times. But this day, something was different. Something was wrong. Mila, I knew this day would come, said Kuko. I just didn't know the effects would be so disastrous. How could I know how the world would look 800 years from then? What? Asked Mila, visibly confused. I'm sorry, young one. I've lived for a long time. There is much I have not taught you, though, as I felt it was not important. But for the first time in over 1,000 years, I feel that I've made a grave error. Thousands of creatures and beasts will fall into a slumber that will hold them for 400 years. And many, the ones born in these last centuries, they are not equipped for it, and therefore will perish unless we do something. Do something? We do? Kuko, whatever could I do? I'm just a baker, said Mila. Indeed you are, Mila. But if we do not try, thousands will die, Kuko said. Mila started to feel quite nervous, quite afraid. But what can I do? I know nothing about this. This is the first time I've heard of anything of this matter. I know, my child, said Kuko, and allow me to teach you as quickly as I can. And so Kuko sat her down and told her all about the history and how he had been there and watched all of it unfold and never really felt the need to interfere with the humans and just watched and was just around to observe and see how humans did things over those 1,000 years. As he was still there, he gained a liking to the family and became close with them. But again, he never tried to interject. He allowed the humans to do whatever they wanted, as this was not his realm. After hearing the entire story, Mila, filled with resolve, realized, okay, so we just have to go down to the first floor and we have to reprogram the machine, right? That's what we can do, because that's what they did. They manipulated it the first time, right? They did manipulate it the first time. So maybe, just maybe, it makes sense. I've watched it happen over all of these years. Mila again looked at Kuko, slightly confused. This happened quite often, actually, as Kuko had lived for such a long time. He had many memories and many moments where he would click and something would fire off and he would be off in his mind going, oh, I can't believe it. I understand now. She would never really get it, but I guess that happens when you live for such a long time. But this time she needed to know what he was talking about. Kuko, please tell me, what is it? Well, one thing that I noticed about your family and your ancestors is that you tend to repeat patterns. Your family grows and changes, but so many things don't change about your family. And I think that's why I stayed around, because it was so unique to watch each generation change and do things and think that they were deterring and rebelling from the main path whilst continuously doing the exact same things over and over like a cycle. Okay, said Mila, still not fully gathering what Kuko was trying to get at. So how does that help us now? You said that the winter is coming to an end, that many will perish. What can we do now? How does this help us? Well, I think you'll understand when you see the first floor. So they made their way down to the first floor. She'd actually never been down to the first floor before. There were so many floors in this building. She'd only made it down to maybe the 15th or 16th, but it continued deep, 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 far, far, far underground. After what seemed like forever, finally, she made it to the first floor. And that's when she saw the supercomputer and the gate. And the first thing that clicked in her head when she saw this floor was, this looks like my kitchen. Very ancient tools and ancient systems here, but there's a lot of this feels very organic. It feels very natural. Exactly, said Kuko. It's extremely natural. See, the way that your family programmed and made this computer was to use natural materials in order to manipulate the gate, as the gate itself is an organic thing. It's magical, but the magic is organic. I see. And so, just like with your strawberry shortcakes, where you take a recipe and you take the ingredients and you put them all together and you create your cakes, that too works to program this machine. Like I said, your family repeated the same patterns over and over again, even though they were attempting to rebel. They could never truly pull away from who they really were. But those things that they did would splinter off into different directions, almost like the human mind, with patterns shooting every which way, neurons firing. I see, said Mila. This is interesting. This is good. I think we might be able to do something. I think maybe I can, hold on, let me look. Hold on, let me look around. Kuko stared on quietly and watched as Mila searched around, seeming to have clicked. Things were twirling and whizzing in her head. If it were me, and I needed my family to continue to take care of a system for years to come, I would probably make a cookbook. Or, well, I suppose, like a program book with instructions in it, a recipe of sorts. And I would probably put that over there. She pointed over to the far corner of the room. Kuko quickly sprung up, jumped into the corner, climbed up, and grabbed the book and brought it back. Well, this is a moment of truth. Let's check it out. They flipped open the book and lo and behold, the recipe. And I say recipe because it very much was like a recipe. It had different ingredients and things that you needed to feed to this supercomputer, of which did not look like a supercomputer in the least, but that's what it was for the time, over 400 years ago. And so she read through all of the different ingredients and realized, I think we can do this. I think I know how to deal with this problem. I can program this computer to continue the winter for another 400 years, I think. I mean, I have to try, right? Said Mila. Of course, and I will help you in any way that you need. What do you need? Okay. Looking over here, gonna have to get this. Okay, we're gonna need. Okay, Kuko, I need you to contact all of the magical beasts and all of the non-magical beasts as well. All of our customers. Go and find them and bring them here as quickly as possible. I think I know what to do, but I'm gonna need all of their help, said Mila, panicked. Of course, right away, Kuko responded. And he zipped out of the room and up the stairs. As he was a magical creature, running when not tethered to a human was a lot faster. All she heard was a whoosh with a hint of snow as he zoomed up the stairs and out the door. In the meanwhile, Mila was looking around the room, trying to make sure she had everything in order. Okay. So I think this probably does that. And I'm going to set this over here and just do a little twist of that. Do this. Okay. And at that moment, she looked and she saw, well, of course, it was hard not to see, the gate. Wow. That thing sure is kind of weird looking, she thought to herself. Kuko appeared back down the stairs. Wow, that was fast. Well, yes, of course, I decided to use some of my magical powers since I am a magical beast, if you do remember. Yes, of course I remember, but I just... Anyways, they're coming. Just as he said that, the magical beasts began to arrive one by one, and then slowly after, the regular animals and creatures that actually had to use normal speed and run on the ground started to appear afterwards. Okay, is everybody here? Okay, so first of all, let me explain to you all what's happening. I'm sure as you're all creatures of this land, you've felt the changes, you've felt things getting different. Everybody in the room started to murmur and stir. Well, the reason why is because of my ancestors. They created a 400-year-long summer, but after my family stopped maintaining the computer here, we slowly fell into a winter that matched it. Or at least that's what I understand from what Kuko told me. She looked at Kuko and he nodded. So I'm going to try to save all of you. I know I'm the youngest probably here, and I know that I have the least experience, and I know that you magical creatures are much more wise than me. You understand the land more than me, and that's why I need your help. I cannot do this on my own. There's things that I cannot reach, I cannot touch, but in order to save all of the creatures' lives in this region, we're going to have to work together, and we're going to have to work fast. So first things first, she started, as she picked up the instruction manual. So everybody, Mila started. We're going to have to gather some ingredients. This is going to be very similar to how I make my strawberry shortcake. But this time we'll be working backwards. First, we'll start with the biscuits. First, we'll need 2 3/4 cups of fine earth. I think the moles can get that, right? The moles nodded. The next, 1/4 cup of schist, or schist? I don't know how it's pronounced. Moles, could you get that too? They kind of half nodded, but they knew what it was and they figured that they could probably get it. Okay, 4.5 teaspoons of sodium bicarbonate. Oh, that's baking soda. And 1 teaspoon of sea salt. Ah, good. We already have that here as well, she said. Okay. We're close. We almost have everything for this section. Okay. So we need 2 tablespoons of phyllite. I think the penguins play around that. Penguins, can you get that? The penguins nodded. Perfect. And areophorum. Oh, that's cotton grass. The hares should be able to get that quite easily. The hares hopped around in circles, tapping the ground with their foot. Okay, Team 1, please do your best and find these items as quickly as you can. All of the non-magical creatures left to go and help find these items. On to Team 2. The strawberries of this operation. Now, this is the part that I need all the magical creatures, as I cannot gather any of this myself. Are the gerfalcons here? Ah, there you are. I'll need your whole family to work together for this one. I'm going to need 75 grams of freezing rain post-drop, not in the cloud, and 1 cup of Arctic cloud, which means that some of you will have to shake the cloud while the other catches the rain, and then others need to gather the rest of the cloud and bring it to me. Can you do that? Yes, of course, I feel like we can, stated the head of the gerfalcon family. Again, magical creatures, they can talk. And lastly, 7 very large cups of crystallized heavy water from the inverted waterfall. Polar bears, please inform the narwhals and work together to get that back to me ASAP. Does that work for you? Of course, milady, said the representative for the polar bears. We'll get the narwhals to do their jobs and get back to you as quickly as possible. All right, yep, that's all. We haven't time to waste. I'll get started too. As she said that, everyone broke and sped off to go and do their duty. Now, this display was a little bit more impressive than the regular creatures, as magical creatures, they all had very different ways of leaving the room. Some bursting into flames and flowing under the ground, some of them turning into a mist and floating out through the walls. Okay, Kuko, are you still here? Of course. I'm a little stressed. I don't know if I'll be able to do this, said Mila, questioning herself. Of course, in moments like this, the pressure is high and the fear kicks in. It really starts to weigh on your chest. You get scared. You don't know, can I actually do it? Can I perform under this type of pressure? I mean, it was only for the hope of thousands of living creatures in the region that was just weighing on her shoulders for someone that had never done this before. But she had hope in herself, and she had Kuko by her side. Okay, let's get started. First things first, she went over to the computer and turned one of the knobs. It was to set the temperature down to -30 degrees. Okay, perfect. She continued to read through the book. Okay, looks like I'm going to need these ingredients now. Just as she said that, one of the magical beasts appeared back in the basement, bringing some of the ingredients. Ah, perfect. She gathered those ingredients and started reading the instructions and doing everything that she needed to do. She worked relentlessly as all of the creatures began to show back up, bringing in different items that she asked for on her list. Okay, so we've got that, and we've got the schist here, scheist, I don't know what this is called. Okay, and we've got this over here, and all right, and we're just gonna put that with that over there. Oh my gosh, this is really hard. All of the creatures watched on. Many were curious, but some also had a tinge of fear in their eyes. They didn't know what was going to happen, but the elders of the family seemed to be firm that she could do what she needed to do. That was probably due to the help and the confidence in which Kuko seemed to hold in her, as Kuko was the oldest and probably the wisest in the region. Okay, so I'm just gonna put this and that's over there, and I'm just gonna mix that. I'm gonna put it together like so, and in what seemed like hours of working while everybody watched, finally she was ready. Doesn't look like much, but this is what it says in the book. I think we're ready. I believe in you, Mila, said Kuko, giving her that last little push. She opened up the door of the machine and she slid this organic program inside. She closed it and stepped back. Only one last thing, said Kuko. Yep. And she grabbed the knob and she twisted it slowly to 400 years and stood back. The tension in the room was palpable. All the creatures looked at each other, but everyone was silent. Flickers of power were radiating off of the magical beast as they seemingly were nervous for the first time in quite some time. Everyone stood there, waiting. Then the gate rumbled. She'd never felt a rumble like this before. It was almost like a small tremor or an earthquake. It was deep and bassy and full, and it scared her. But the creatures seemed to relax when they felt it. I suppose they were more connected with the land than she was. It rumbled again, deep but a slow bass, very flowy. And suddenly the pressure in the room seemed to just fall away. Right at that moment she heard a ding, and the light on the machine turned blue. You've done it, said Kuko. The blue is a sign that the winter program is running. Really? All of the other creatures started to mumble and talk and squeak, and she realized that maybe she did do it. They all seemed so happy. And that was when Mila realized that she could relax and truly calm down, as she did do it. She saved all of them. Kuko broke the awkwardness of the situation by stating, "How about we go upstairs and get some strawberry shortcake? I'm feeling awfully hungry." And so they did. They all made their way to the first floor and decided to have a giant feast with all the strawberry shortcake that everyone there could eat. It was a huge celebration. Everybody was so happy and excited. All of the animals and all of the magical creatures were roaring in excitement, smashing drinks together, drinking from water bowls, and just having a grand time together, all just happy and celebrating that they could continue to live and not have to lose any of their friends or family. they all worked together to save the region, and so they all had a feeling of deep pride within them. And they deserved it. They really did save everyone in Nye. And that's where that recording ended. It seemed like a really fun party. They were stuffing their faces, mainly the polar bears. It seemed there was actually a section which was just describing just how much the polar bears ate. And so concludes tonight's story. I am going to relax and probably not read another book for a little bit because I am all storied out for tonight. Gonna relax, get some tea, then go and lay in bed. And you need to get home safely, so. And again, on your way out, don't forget to hit the light. I will catch you again tomorrow for another story if you're down. All right, have yourself a wonderful night. Stay safe, chill out, say hello to the family, and I will catch you tomorrow. Take care.